I'm 32M, and this past Christmas Eve, my family made it very clear that I was nothing more than an afterthought to them. But they didn't expect me to fight back, and they definitely didn't expect what I had in store for them. So, my family's always had its favorites. My older brother, 35M, was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. My sister, 30F, was the peacekeeper who mostly went along with whatever kept her in good standing with our parents. Me, I was the independent one, which was their nice way of saying I was the one they didn't bother with. Every Christmas, we did the same thing, dinner at my parents' house, presents, 4 smiles, the usual. But this year felt weird, tense. My brother looked smug, my sister kept giving me these weird looks, and my parents were being overly nice in that way where you know they're about to say something terrible. Then, after dinner, my dad clears his throat and says, "We have something important to discuss." That's when he drops it. They've finalized their estate plans. My brother and sister are inheriting everything. The house, the vacation property, the investments, everything. I blinked. And what about me? My mom gave me this rehearsed, condescending smile. "Sweetheart, you've always been independent. You don't have a family to support like your brother and sister do. We just think this is what's best for everyone." My brother leaned back in his chair, smirking. "I mean, it's not like you need it." At that moment, I realized exactly where I stood in this family. I wasn't even angry yet, just numb. Like, wow, they really saw me as that disposable. I just stood up, grabbed my coat, and said, "Merry Christmas." And not a single one of them called me back. The anger came later. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about how little they valued me. Then, a few days later, I got a call from an old family friend, our longtime attorney. He handled a lot of my grandfather's legal affairs before he passed years ago. "I heard about the estate changes," he said. "I assume they told you about your grandfather's trust." I frowned. "What trust?" Silence. Then he sighed. "You should probably look into that." That was all I needed to hear. Turns out, my grandfather had left equal shares of a substantial trust for me, my brother, and my sister. But here's the kicker, I never got mine. The records showed that my parents had been managing my portion since I was young. But instead of handing it over when I became an adult, they slowly drained it. And where did the money go? My brother, his bad business decisions, his gambling debts, his lavish lifestyle. My parents had been funneling my inheritance to clean up his messes. I sat there staring at the bank records, feeling this mix of rage and disbelief. They stole from me. My own parents. I didn't confront them immediately. I wanted to do this right. So I lawyered up. Turns out, what they did wasn't just morally wrong, it was very illegal. So I waited. Then, on New Year's Eve, I showed up at their house, just like before. My brother, my sister, my parents, all of them sitting around, drinking, laughing like nothing happened. I walked in, dropped a stack of legal documents on the table, and said, "You stole my inheritance, and now you're going to pay for it." Silence. My dad's face turned red. "What the hell are you talking about?" I looked straight at my brother. "The trust from Grandpa. My share. The one you've been spending." My mom started wringing her hands. My sister looked like she wanted to disappear. "I have the records. Bank statements, transfers, everything. You drained my trust, and that's fraud." I turned to my dad. "And since you were the executor, you're responsible." He tried to brush it off. "We were just managing it for you. You never needed. It wasn't yours to take." Then came the real twist. My lawyer found something else. Not only had they drained my trust, but they had also been dipping into my sister's without her knowledge. Unlike my brother, she had no idea. And when she found out, she lost it. She joined my lawsuit. Now, instead of just me taking legal action, both of us were coming after them. And suddenly, my parents were looking at serious consequences. Long story short, they lost. Badly. They were forced to pay back every penny they stole from me. My sister got her share too. But here's where it gets even better. Since my dad was the executor of the trust, his actions were a serious legal violation. An investigation was launched, and his name was publicly dragged through the mud. This man had spent years building a reputation as a respected businessman. That was over. And my brother? Without my parents' money bailing him out, he was done. The gambling debts? Unpaid. The mortgage? Defaulted. The house they planned to leave him? Sold to cover legal fees. Last I heard, he was living in a tiny apartment, barely making ends meet. No more fancy cars. No more status. Just a guy who bet on his parents' favoritism and lost. As for my parents, they begged. Oh, did they beg? Called, texted, even showed up at my place. We're still family, they said. We made a mistake. I didn't even entertain it. You weren't doing what was best for the family. You were doing what was best for him. They had to sell their house to pay off their debts. The same house they had smugly told me I wasn't getting a share of. And me? I walked away with everything they tried to take from me. Do I regret it? Not for a second. They made their choice. And I made mine. Oh, and to anyone out there dealing with entitled family, don't roll over. Don't let them win. And if you like this story, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, I've got more where that came from.